We are listening to Radio Koraput, and today is observed as National Newspaper Day in India. And as we know that national this day is observed to mark the birth of newspapers in India, which has played a great role in the pre-independence era and also in the post-independence era. So, newspaper has been a way of life, a part of life for many. There are people who cannot start the day without reading a newspaper. And on this fine day, we have the opportunity of talking to Professor Sourav Gupta of Central University of Odisha at Koraput to discuss about the relevance of newspaper on the face of the social media and the mobile phones. Sir, we invite you and we welcome you to Radio Koraput, and we would like to know the relevance of newspapers in the field of information when we have the social media and also the mobile phones and all that. So, sir,
Thank you, and very good evening to all the listeners of Radio Koraput. Today marks the anniversary of the first newspaper in India. It was a very auspicious day. However, the first newspaper was brought out by a European person called James Augustus Hickey, and the name of the newspaper was Bengal Gazette. It was 1780, and it was a short-lived newspaper. And right from the time it started publishing, it ran into several problems. There were several issues regarding the newspaper, and ultimately it had to be closed down. It faced the wrath of the then government. James Hickey, who was the editor of the Bengal Gazette, in spite of being an European himself, he could not escape the wrath of the British government, which was ruling India. The government, it so in a way we can say that journalism and the power, they have an inverse relationship, and it was established from day one. The intolerance which was shown by the British Empire towards Hickey's Gazette, as it was popularly known as, it was also known as the Calcutta General Advertiser. So Bengal Gazette, Hickey's Gazette, Calcutta General Advertiser was not tolerated by the then government. There were certain ethical issues which we learned from the Hickey's Gazette experience. Ethical issues in the sense that what should be published in a newspaper and what should not be published. How far can a newspaper go in search of news? Can it intrude upon the privacy of an individual? These were certain issues which encircled the short journey of Hickey's Gazette. The newspaper was bearing some news regarding an extramarital affair of the then Viceroy's wife with another government official. And obviously, the Viceroy would not tolerate that. And he jailed Hickey and seized all the printing machines and press. Hickey was quite a brave person, resilient person. In spite of being in jail, he continued publishing the Bengal Gazette somehow, but in again and again it was closed down. Again and again he faced the wrath, and ultimately he could not continue it. Now, the thing which we learn from this incident, it becomes a lesson for journalism for all time. What is the main aim of journalism? The main aim of journalism is to provide relevant information to the people, to arouse the consciousness of the people regarding the society and the social system, and above all, to create a beautiful environment in the society and in the country where people can coexist. It should preach good ideas, positive ideas. It seems that somewhere down the line, James Hickey, in an compulsion to sell his newspaper, he resorted to yellow journalism, which nobody should do. That is learning number one from Hickey's gadget. However, learning number two is that the government or the people in power may not appreciate truth, may not appreciate exuberance from the press. They may not be comfortable with the press. So there are several techniques of expressing ideas, journalistic creations. Thirdly, a journalist has to be very brave. Hickey, in spite of all his limitations and wrongdoings, he established one thing, that a journalist should be brave, an editor should be brave. We see the reflection of this incident many years later in India, when during the emergency, the then Prime Minister imposed censorship on the Indian press. And then at that time also, there were some brave journalists and editors who were jailed, who were tortured, but still they did not fear the power, and they wrote the truth, and they criticized vehemently the abuse of power. And we could see that in the following general elections, the Indira Gandhi government, they lost and they were ousted from
So
the power.
in the meanwhile, there were lots of newspapers starting from the north to the south, and from English to the vernacular languages. And in the process, we have seen in recent times that the newspaper has been getting a back seat in publishing, because those newspapers which were publishing some 20 odd pages now they are limiting themselves to 12 pages. So certainly the circulation of newspapers has come down. So how do you see its relevance and also its future, particularly when the mobile media has trying to overpower this newspaper reading?
Actually, I remember in 2010, I had attended one seminar, the death of print media. So there, from that time only, these things are being discussed because of the declining circulation of newspapers. Our society has undergone a sea change, especially in the field of technology. The social structure, earlier there was government service and business. These were the two main engagement of the people. The engagement hours were different. People had time to read a newspaper, and reading a newspaper was also in fashion. Educated people, they were reading newspapers from early on. When the education system of our country fostered, literacy rate increased, people had the hunger for information, the newspapers' craze also increased. There were several political turmoils in our country, and newspapers were witness and reflections of those turmoils. So people flocked to read newspapers, even during the wars also. But what happened was, due to the advent of the electronic media, especially television, and then the internet-based media, now the circulation has come down. Another problem is due to the corporate sector. The job structure has become in such a way that people are now left with no time to sit and enjoy reading a newspaper. The same problem has happened with literature also. The sale of books, novels, literature has gone down drastically. People do not have time to read. And the electronic media, what they are doing is they are supplying, they are providing news in a capsule to the people. Just the points. Every day in the morning, instead of holding a newspaper, what people are doing is they are logging into their online editions of the newspaper, and there are bullet points. So within 5 to 10 minutes, they are coming to know what is going on around the world and in the country. Also, day long, the news keeps coming in the smartphone. So in this kind of a problem, many people are wondering that what is the future of the print media. But let me tell you that the print media will never die, because the newspaper is a unique media and it is quite different from the electronic media. Yes, I agree that working professionals may not buy newspapers, but there are people who love to read newspapers, who have time to read newspapers, and they will always subscribe to a newspaper, because newspaper gives that unique flavor of in-depth analysis and the beauty of the taste of language.
And also the
Electron,
taste of turning pages, that
the
tender touch of the newspaper with the hand, turning pages and
exactly,
trying to find out the relevant information that we like the most.
exactly, and the scent of the papers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Certainly.
So these are things which people won't let go. I mean, in different phases of life, people have different priorities. So I've seen people who were extremely busy post retirement or post, once they have attained a stage of life, they read newspapers, because we need information, we need interpretation, we need opinions.
Yeah. So at the last, let us find it out that the cost of newspaper is also rising high, because of lack of advertisement and lack of patronage by the government. So now, do you feel that there should be sufficient patronage from the government, so that in the print, buying the print, or the publishing the newspaper, so that newspaper can be available at an affordable price to the readers?
Yes, actually, in the second press commission, the recommendation, it included this point where the government was recommended to provide newsprint at a subsidized rate. So I think that subsidy should be enhanced, first of all, to make it available, and government should take a policy that to provide more advertisement, government advertisements to the newspapers, so that they can survive. I mean, if they earn revenue, then only they will be able to lower the price of the newspaper. And newspapers should be considered to be a national asset for the government. Here, of course, the question of the quality is there. We have to take journalism to such a height where we can claim such favors from the government. That is also there.
So again, let us hope that the quality rises, but let the new newspapers come forward, even though they are striving to maintain the quality, and the government comes forward to support the marginalized newspapers, the small newspapers, the medium newspapers, and
Yes,
also large newspapers, so that there will be fresh inputs to the newspapers, and newspapers survive, newsmen survive, news hawkers survive, because it's a newspaper is not only a paper, but also it is a employment for many, this thing. So the businessman earns something, the hawker earns something, the reporter earns something, the media house earns something. So
yes,
lots of families are dependent on that. We hope that on this National Newspaper Day, government will think for the survival of the newspapers and come forward to support it. Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving your time to
thank you.
discuss on this very great occasion, on the great topic of surviving the newspapers. Thanks to all the listeners of Radio Koraput, that we have spent such a great amount of time learning the relevance of newspapers even on the day. Thank you again. Namaskar.